Navila Garay was a 50-year-old girl who entered into a relationship with a man not only 40 years her senior, but also a relative of hers. It goes without saying that this did not end well, and Navila mysteriously vanished. Welcome back to Unheard of, and today you will delve into the details of a case that shook Argentina, the Navila Garay case. Navila Garay hailed from Chascomús, a city with just over 30,000 inhabitants, situated in Argentina. According to her mother, Navila had a profound love for music and was a vivacious girl. She harbored aspirations to become a teacher, specifically for kindergarten. Navila was also passionate about engaging in conversations with others, effortlessly forming friendships. She was constantly surrounded by people, be it acquaintances, friends, and especially her younger siblings and cousins. On September 10, 2019, when Navila was 15, she vanished without a trace. This occurred shortly after 6 in the evening, the last moment her family laid eyes on her. In the wake of her disappearance, extensive searches and investigations were initiated, striving to locate her and decipher what had truly transpired. Early accounts suggested that Navila left her home on the afternoon of September 10th to visit a man named Nestor. Nestor Alfredo Garay was 56 at the time of these events. Reportedly, he was a former employee of the Circle of Non-Commissioned Officers of the Federal Police of Argentina. At that time, he was working as a gardener. He was illiterate and had ties to Navila's family, being a distant cousin to the girl's mother. In an interview, Navila's mother, Deborah, recollected that around 10 minutes before her daughter departed, the young girl requested her mother to iron some freshly washed clothes. Deborah mentioned that her daughter said she would be back shortly for them to share a cup of tea, but the girl never returned. On that same day, surveillance footage captured Navila and Nestor together on a motorcycle, heading towards a country house where he was employed as a gardener. The bus driver who transported her close to Nestor's residence noted that the girl appeared in good spirits when she alighted. Navila Garay's disappearance generated significant media attention, which naturally captivated the nation's interest. Having been the last person to witness Navila, Nestor Garay swiftly emerged as the prime suspect in her disappearance, and as days passed, suspicions about him grew progressively stronger. 5 days post her disappearance, the owner of the country house where Nestor worked reached out to the police, voicing her concerns. She relayed to the officers that Nestor had shared with her about burying an animal in a garden, specifically a dog. However, she found his tale rather odd, prompting her decision to contact law enforcement. Additionally, the woman further informed the police that Nestor had confided in her that a minor, with whom he was intimately involved, was extorting him. Aware of Navila's disappearance, she connected the dots and, growing highly suspicious, approached the authorities. The woman resides in the city of Lanús, about an hour's drive from Chascomús, where she owned a country house where Nestor worked as a gardener. Following the testimony from the country house owner, the police decided to dispatch a team to the location to conduct the searches and forensics. The officers dug in the area where the dog was supposedly buried, and there they found the body of Navila Garay in a grave approximately 1 foot and 11.62 inches deep. Elsewhere on the property, in a nearby shed, the police found blood and stains on the walls. They also discovered the murder weapon, which was a mallet in this case. The authorities reported that Navila's cell phone was not found, although they were able to trace numerous phone communications between her and Nestor. According to the police, it's highly likely that Nestor took the young girl's life on the very day she vanished. The man left ample evidence of his crime at the scene, likely believing he wouldn't get caught, given the secluded nature of the country house and that it would be unlikely for anyone to look for Navila there. According to authorities, he hadn't thought through the entire situation and was disorganized. He was overly confident and genuinely believed he'd go unpunished. This led him to leave the crime scene virtually untouched, greatly aiding the investigation. The one audit police noted was his effort to hide the body but not the murder weapon, and the failure to clean the blood-stained walls and floor of the shed. It seemed as though at some point he simply gave up on disposing of the evidence. On the property, during their search, police combed the surrounding areas and, with the assistance of divers, found the girl's backpack submerged in a nearby pond. Subsequently, Navila's body underwent an autopsy, which revealed she had sustained 17 mallet blows to her head and torso. According to the report, these blows caused Navila to suffer a traumatic cardiorespiratory arrest, a result of massive cerebral hemorrhage due to the multiple fractures in her skull. Initially, there were no signs of forced relations on her body. Her time of death was determined to be 5 days prior, aligning with her disappearance date. In an interview, the forensic expert on the case shared that the sheer number of blows she received indicated a deep emotional rage the perpetrator harbored towards her. The expert further stated that the assailant was bent on ensuring Navila Garay did not survive. Nestor Garay was swiftly apprehended as the prime suspect in Navila's murder. In his initial testimony, he claimed he killed Navila because she was blackmailing him, threatening to disclose he had forced her into relations unless he gave her money. He alleged that she demanded 3,000 pesos, which he denied having. Throughout his entire testimony, the accused showed no remorse or concern. It seemed as though he was indifferent to the consequences of his actions. After Nestor's arrest, authorities expressed that the country house owner's tip-off was pivotal in cracking the case. They emphasized the importance of reporting, ensuring that crimes do not go unpunished. As previously mentioned, Navila Garay's disappearance received extensive media coverage, capturing the attention of many. When her body was discovered and initial reports on her tragic fate surfaced, the public was outraged. The uproar was so intense that a public march was held, demanding justice. This march culminated in incidents outside the police station, as some protesters pelted the building with rocks and other projectiles. The family, while devastated, was also seething with rage. Navila was laid to rest in a Chascomús cemetery, the ceremony attended by hundreds, friends, family, acquaintances, and those who'd followed the case. In an interview, Navila's aunt a woman named Silvina Garay expressed her hope that the perpetrator wouldn't spend a single day of his miserable life without recalling the harm he inflicted on their family. The victim's mother, Deborah, expressed her feeling of having a part of her taken away and her yearning for justice. Deborah also mentioned that although Nestor was related to her, they weren't in contact, and she had no clue how Navila came to know him. The statements made by the young girl's mother cast a shadow of doubt, as everyone following the case, including the authorities, had believed that Nestor had been close to the family. With this revelation, the police chose to dig deeper into the relationship between Nestor and Navila, unearthing even stranger details. According to the authorities, the two were in frequent contact to the extent that the girl had visited Nestor's house several times. She had dined there, even taking showers. On occasion, he would call her over to his place for company. Armed with this new information, the police decided to question the young girl's mother again. Deborah then changed her story, asserting that while the family did know Nestor, Navila would only visit his house to do housework, and he would pay her for it. This change in story, especially given the mother's early lie, made the police more suspicious, prompting a deeper investigation. Detectives interviewed relatives, neighbors, and acquaintances of both the victim and the suspect. The revelations were shocking. According to these sources, Navila and Nestor had been intimately involved for over a year. This relationship would have begun when Navila was only 14 and Nestor 55. Even more disturbingly, we must remember they were blood relatives. Further interviews revealed that Nestor often gave Navila money whenever she asked, and her family was fully aware of this arrangement. Some sources mentioned that in recent months, Nestor had decided to end the relationship, even expressing his intentions to Navila. Yet she reportedly did not wish to end things. These revelations left the investigators and everyone else closely watching the case in shock. It appeared that the victim and the perpetrator indeed had a relationship, regardless of their familial ties and the significant age gap. With this new information, the police theorized that Nestor may have grown fearful that news of their relationship would reach the authorities, resulting in his arrest. To hide the truth about their relationship, he might have decided to commit the crime. During his time in jail awaiting trial, Nestor, who is illiterate, had another inmate write a note which he then passed to his attorney. In the note, Nestor claimed that he did not act alone, suggesting that another individual had assisted him in the crime. To this day, it remains unclear why Nestor requested the note to be written, whether it was his idea or a defense strategy to buy time. However, the police confirmed after further investigation that Nestor acted alone, with no evidence of another person involved in the crime. Furthermore, a search of Nestor's home was conducted to determine any involvement and schemes targeting minors, but no incriminating evidence was found. After thorough investigations and inquiry, the authorities arrived at the following timeline of events. On September 10, 2019, as previously mentioned, Navila Garay left her home around 6 or 6:30 in the evening. She took a bus headed to Nestor Garay residence, The bus driver even testified that when Navila disembarked at her stop, she appeared to be fine. Upon arriving at Nestor's, she was persuaded to go with him to the country house where he worked as a gardener. The authorities have not disclosed, or perhaps don't know, what Nestor might have said to Navila to convince her to go to this location, but it is suspected he might have offered her money. They traveled to the country house together on Nestor's motorcycle. Security cameras installed near Nestor's home captured the two as they passed through a street on their route. The police estimate that about half an hour after being captured on this footage, Navila's phone was turned off. They believe that by then, she was no longer alive. As previously mentioned, Navila's cell phone was never found, a fact that initially hampered the conclusion of the investigations. Nestor Garay's trial took place a few months following his arrest. This trial lasted several days, with a multitude of witnesses testifying before the court. The prosecutor handling the case stated that the girl and Nestor had a relationship, and this was known to the teenager's family. Furthermore, a female prosecutor, who was also in charge of the case, indicated, based on testimonies from the victim's relatives, that the girl used to go to the accused's house to have relations with him. Thought Navila's family initially lied, claiming they didn't know how she had met Nestor, especially since despite being a relative, they had no contact with him. They later changed their story, saying she went to the accused's house to clean. However, other witnesses in court stated that this wasn't what the girl was doing there, and that the family had always known what was truly transpiring between the two. The prosecution further emphasized that the connection between the victim and the accused was no secret to anyone. One of the girl's last messages to a family member read, "I'm going over to Lito's house and will be back soon." And Lito was the nickname used by those close to Nestor. The defense, on the other hand, brought forward witnesses who claimed that Nestor no longer wished to see Navila, but that Navila persisted and wanted to continue seeing the man. The defense also argued that Nestor had a very troubled life, was illiterate, and had grown up in extreme social vulnerability. In the end, Nestor Garay was sentenced to 16 years in prison for the crime against Navila Garay. He is currently held in a conventional prison in Argentina and, according to sources, is an inmate with exemplary behavior. Navila's mother, Deborah, later said in an interview that she had hoped for a harsher sentence. However, regardless of the length of the sentence, there's no consolation for the crime. Many questions that arose from the crime remain unanswered. The motive for the crime against Navila is still not very clear, even though Nestor has given his version of events. Nearly 4 years after the crime, the case has ceased to be a major topic of discussion, but it remains deeply unsettling, especially for the family. Navila's room remains untouched since the young girl left and never returned. According to the girl's mother, they keep all of her belongings and clothing with the intention of keeping her memory alive. And this was the story of Navila Garay, a teenager whose life was taken by a man with whom she had relations, the nature of which remains not entirely clear, in a crime filled with uncertainties and outrages. Thank you very much for watching me to the end. And if you liked the video, please leave a like to help me out. Best wishes, and I will see you next time.